This is Level Up Life After 40 with Shai P.
and Amy E., helping women over 40 to grow, reinvent, and stop settling for just getting by.
Because your best chapter might just be ahead. Thanks for tuning in to another fantastic episode of Level Up Life After 40 with Shai P and Amy E. And today we want to talk about having the courage to kind of live life in what you would deem as success, but not just what you would deem as success, but also taking an honest look at what you consider success and not having like a complacent version, which we'll kind of talk about. But what's the first thing that you would think of when you hear the word success? What do you imagine? Amy, do you have something that kind of pops into your head when you're thinking about success?
Oh, of course, money and fame.
There you go.
That's the first
Ooh.
thing that pops into my mind, probably since I was in my 20s. You talk about success and you equate it with the amount of money you have and or status, maybe not necessarily fame, but status.
Well, that's the first image that I have, but I don't think it's the correct image. I think it's just the image that has been societally placed on us, if you will.
Mhm.
But that's where the topic came from, because I think while that is a version of success, it's not everyone's version of success. So I think we should really talk about not only people kind of having the courage to define what success is if it's outside the scope of what people consider the norm.
Mhm.
Because I've had people that have tried to define what success should mean to me, and it's really just irritated the heck out of me. Like, it just irritated the heck out of me. Just defining what it is for yourself, but not taking a complacent view. Like, if you are living, like, you can have a good life, and don't get me wrong, you could have a nice home, you could have the family and the job and stuff, but if it's not where you're feeling fully satisfied, like I had a job where I was paid really well, I had good hours, I enjoyed my coworkers, but I didn't necessarily deem it as success because it wasn't really what I wanted to do. I didn't love going to work. And so I think there's place for everything. And you looked up the definition, the actual Webster's definition, right, of success.
I did, because I kind of wanted to have a base as to what we were talking about before I started going into the weeds and diving deeper into it. And let me just kind of rephrase when I said, what's the first thing I think of success? I'm kind of using that from a point of what I think society
Mm,
would deem as the definition of success: wealth and power.
right. And I did get off track too, but also the people to walk out in your convictions and your definition of success, even if it goes into the face of society. So, yeah. But when you came up with your definition, it actually does kind of cover the full gamut.
It really does. So, success is the accomplishment of a desired aim, purpose, often resulting in manifestation as either wealth, status, or personal fulfillment. So, that's the first part of the definition, which kind of pretty much summed up what I said earlier:
Mhm.
wealth, power. However, I like the second part better. Success is subjective. It evolves throughout life as a journey. So life is a journey rather than a fixed destination. And it frequently changes and evolves as we realign it with our actions, core values, and our aim to achieve goals of success, of happiness.
Mhm. Yeah, and I even in the first bit, it was like the little tagline of fulfillment, which I think is important.
At the end of the day, success is subjective. What I deem as successful, it could be completely different than what you deem as successful. I also kind of broke it down into like different components of success, and we're going to touch on those real briefly. Because, right, we talked about what's the point of this podcast is to define success for yourself. What does that look like? And let's help lay out that blueprint so that we
Mhm.
can start living that successful life. So, the first thing that comes up is prosperity, kind of what I said. In your early 20s and 30s, it's all about making money, right? And we find ourselves constantly comparing ourselves to what our high school or college friends are doing or what our other colleagues are doing. And it's all about who has the bigger house, who has the nicest car, who goes to the bougiest parties and events, who's got the fanciest clothes. In those early stages of life, and I'm guilty of it too, success was defined by the amount of stuff you had.
Mhm.
And there's
Yep.
nothing necessarily wrong with having stuff.
And sometimes it was kind of on how you looked.
Well, yes, that like I
Yeah.
said, the fancy clothes, the bougie parties, who are you being seen with? That is a part of success, and there's nothing wrong with it. That is one of the definitions. And prosperity in your 20s is kind of a huge motivator.
Mhm. And don't get and there's nothing wrong with wanting to have money and having money, so don't think that we're, like, poo-pooing that away, because that can be a perfectly legit measure and value for you to define success in some area of your life.
Hmm. But let's not make that the only area that we
And
focus on.
right, and not let it be the area that you focus on because you feel that's what you're supposed to, because you were told that that is what it's supposed to be.
Well, like I said, it's all about comparison. When you're earlys
Mhm.
and 20s, you're trying to prove yourself to everybody around you that I'm going to make it. The naysayers in high school that said you'd never amount to anything, it's all about, no, look at me. Look at me now. Like I am something. I am somebody.
Yep. Well, Toby Keith, he had a song about that.
I wouldn't know because I don't listen to country, but
You'd like that song. It's jazzy enough that it wouldn't bother you.
but that also transitioned to attainment. So attainment of reaching either a high level of wealth, fame, or position.
Mhm.
You're climbing up that corporate ladder. You're working those extra hours. You're sacrificing pretty much all of your free time because you need to be one step ahead of that colleague that's right next to you for that promotion. So like, okay, I'm going to work this weekend just to prove that I'm, the more suitable subject or that I'm more loyal or that I'm more dedicated to this company. And in your 20s and your 30s, you have a lot of time to do that before kids. Of course. That's part of how you were achieving success was through that equation of attainment.
Mhm.
And then as you start to evolve, things maybe change in your core values. And now maybe we become moms.
Mhm.
Talk about a huge shift. So now instead of it being work, now the shift is gone completely to family.
Mhm.
And so
Yep.
your core value is maybe you took time off from your job. Maybe you quit your job. Maybe you took a hiatus. Maybe you were working part time through that because, once again, it wasn't now all about keeping up with your colleagues. It was about raising my family. And that's what I love about success and the evolution. Remember, life is a journey
Yep.
and success is defined in different places as you live this journey.
Right. And I think people, and again, I don't have kids. I have seen people who will kind of define their success as a parent as to how their kids turn out or what their kids do or if they're a naturally good athlete or my student's an honor student. They put the stuff on the bumper stickers and all the things. And I think that's all well and good. And I think it's great that you were a great parent and you supported them. But I think it's kind of a slippery slope and a little dangerous to define your personal success and someone else's success, even if it is your children. That's just me. I think parenting, you're there for your kids. Again, you encourage them. And if they turn out to be a great athlete or whatever, the nurturing, absolutely. But I think even if your kid just turns out to be a regular person like me running around out there, that's okay too. You can still be a successful parent just because you took the right care of your kids, you loved them, you encouraged them, all the things. So don't let someone else's success define what your success is.
In this episode, we are going to focus on helping you create a blueprint to put together a success plan that works for you. Once again, this is your life, not anybody else's. This is your version of success, not anybody else's. It has nothing to do with how much money you make. It has nothing to do with how much fame or notoriety you have. It has everything to do with what is important to you. What is in line with your core values? What goals do you want to achieve? And finding happiness. Because at the end of the day, how many people say they have more money than God and they're absolutely miserable?
Mhm. Yep. And I've seen a lot of people who just couldn't keep a relationship together. They were very successful in business, but then the relationships went down the toilet, and I've heard some stories, and sometimes I'm just thinking, "Really? That happened to you?" Like, you're just kinda surprised that, alright. And I think that's another good example too with the comparison thing, because we can look at somebody, we have no idea. We will see maybe one facet or snippet of their life that we think, "Oh, they're so successful, they have this, they have that," and then realize, they want this little bit of something over here that I have too. So let
Sure.
that be a lesson as far as comparison and where you're gonna place the value on things.
Well, I'm gonna laugh when we talk about success. The movie The Devil Wears Prada 2 is coming out, and if you look at Miranda Priestley, talk about somebody that is as high on the success ladder as anybody could possibly be in the fashion world, yet in her personal life, she's absolutely miserable.
Mhm.
We say you can't have it all, but you can have balance,
It's true. I like that.
right?
Yep. And I heard a
Every
good definition of balance, because nothing's ever gonna be truly balanced, but you just wanna make sure that each area of your life, you have enough that it's fulfilling. And I thought, I really like that because I think people try to segment it like it's like equal portions of time or equal portions of this or that, and it's not. It's just making sure that you have enough fulfillment in each area that creates the balance for you.
and each bucket, with that being said, might have need more time or energy than other buckets,
Mhm.
depending on what you find is important to you.
Right, and that's again because the success is evolving, so success in an area or how you feel about an area is gonna change as you grow. Let's hope that at 40 plus that your value of success is not the same as it is when it's 20.
I can tell you right now, mine is probably almost the 100-degree polar opposite
Mhm,
of what I thought success was when I was in my early 20s. Right now, my focus is on purpose and making a difference.
mhm,
And my goal of saving as many dogs as I can through foster and also fundraising as much as I can to help them get the medical attention that they need. Those are values that are important to me and also align with my purpose in life. And when I do those things, happiness just comes along with it.
mhm. Well, so at the end of the year, I guess you would kind of quantify a successful year with your rescue is certain funds raised, which of
Right.
course is money, and then however many bodies that you were able to help.
Exactly. And the goal is to always try to do a little better every year. And
Mhm.
these are just goals that I put on myself.
I was gonna say, you're still serving the purpose that you set out to do, so you consider that a success in and of itself.
Mhm. And the happiness that I get from it is second to none.
Mhm,
So that's just one area of my life that I've been able to write a blueprint for success, and I continue to follow it, and it is aligned with my core values, and I'm really happy and proud of that. Cheyenne, how about you?
um, well, gosh, well, definitely not the same as when I was 20, that's for sure, but even different from 40 and 45 to where I am now, I'm 54. Just the amount of hours that I wanna work, the peace. I actually even back when I first started in real estate, I thought it was wonderful that I was so busy with real estate, and I didn't mind that people saw I was busy with real estate. Like, "Yes, I'm going to talk on my phone about the deal you have, and I'm gonna post like, 'Yeah, worked all weekend for this,' or whatever." That girl is gone. Now, granted, I'm still gonna work hard, but I've shifted things so that I have a teammate so I can share the load. I mean, because otherwise that lifestyle would still exist. But because my goal to have some peace and time and a little bit of a schedule to focus on other things is completely different. I have actually turned off notifications on my phone because I'm like typical Americans, I do look at my phone regularly enough, so I'm not gonna miss anything, but the constant interruptions from getting emails from one of the thousands of agents that we have in the area was just too much. Like, I was getting pop-up notifications, and just for my own peace, I turned off my notifications. So, my measure of success is not how busy I am anymore. It's always been about quality and helping people, so that still exists. I
Mhm.
still need to earn a living, so yes, the numbers are there, but how I create it has changed. So my version of success is still being able to earn an income, be an entrepreneur, but also maintain some semblance of a private life and being able to turn it off.
And a relationship with your significant other.
Yeah. Right.
Thank you. I'm glad you said that. That priority, that relationship with your spouse, or in our listener's case, or your kids, there's
Mhm.
nothing wrong with putting that first.
Yeah. Well, back first God, then Brett. But yeah. And it's like my teammate, her kids are her priority. And fortunately, we're able to mash those things up beautifully together and the team works out great. So we both are able to be our version of successful with business and our version of successful with personal. So is it always 100%? No, but it's pretty good. And I think one of the things I'm trying to focus on now, and I actually wrote down a note, is start with having successful days or what you consider a successful day. So if you're wanting to be more productive, or if your idea of being successful is preparing, I don't know, home cooked meals, whatever it is, start with the day first, because maybe the broader picture of having a successful year or successful month, what habits, what things can you do in a day that align with your core values that will cause you to have a successful day?
Mhm.
Start there.
And I'm glad that you brought up core values. Write down your top 5 core values.
Mhm.
Write them down and look at them every day and say, how am I going to draw my success from these core values, and how am I going to shape success? Because at the end of the day, this is what's really important to you. And it might take you a few days to write down your top 5. As Cheyenne would say during her coaching, asking yourself multiple questions to get to what is really important to you.
Mhm.
So just really taking that time, and this is the exercise, this is the work, this is the homework part of the podcast, is write down those core values and really put some deep thought
Mhm.
into why they're important to you.
Yep. And then ask yourself the question, am I living a successful life based on these? And I kind of want to point out the complacency part of this just because I know I have been a victim of it, where things are, it's good enough. And we're very fortunate in this country. But since we do have so many options open to us, we should be living some kind of life of value, what we would deem to be valuable. So, an example in my company, there are people who do very, very well. And so it was probably about 5 or so years ago, and I was talking to a friend and I was doing well, don't get me wrong, I mean, I made a decent living, but there was someone else and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, and she's doing this," and I think this was before, it was definitely before we started the podcast because, I'd always thought about doing a podcast and a YouTube channel, but, I'm slow to move with things, so I wouldn't say I was successful in those areas. So, but I was just like, "Man, and they've got this YouTube channel, and they're doing this, that, and the other thing, and, like, all of this," and she goes, "Yeah, but do you actually want to work the schedule and live the schedule that she's living?" And I was like, no, I really don't. I really don't." There were aspects that I could pluck that I wanted. It's kinda like I've, like, talked about having a cat cafe, like, having a cat cafe. Yeah, I could have had a successful cat cafe, but really my heart wasn't there because I didn't wanna do the work to get me that. It didn't align with my goals and values at the time, you know?
Mhm.
And so a certain kind of work schedule, but also don't, on the flip side, excuse it. Like, I can say, "Oh, I'm very content with this," when deep down I know I'm not. I'm just not doing the work toward it. Don't give yourself a pass. Be very honest. Maybe it aligns with your core values. That's great. That's where you need to be. But if it does not align with core values, look as to why you're not doing it. If it's really something that you would do, and go back and listen to some of our episodes where we talk about fear. Are you brave? Are you trying to reinvent? Where do you need to go with this? So be very honest when you do this analysis. Don't beat yourself up, but again, don't give yourself a pass.
I'm glad you brought that up, because there's a reason that you're not taking action
Mhm.
is because it's not important enough to you.
Right.
everything that needs to be accomplished, we find time to do it.
Yep.
And if it's not that important, it gets put by the wayside.
Right. And since this month we're kind of talking about courage, sometimes it takes courage to really examine yourself. It takes
Hmm.
courage to ask yourself these questions and really get the answers because sometimes we don't like what we're going to see. I mean, I don't always like when I have a characteristic about myself that's not all that flattering,
Hmm.
but that's how we grow. That's how we change. And that's where the courage to make those changes come from. I was going to say, I have another little just example, but I didn't know if you had any other points, Amy.
Nope. Nope, go for it.
Okay. So, Reacher. They have the Reacher series on Prime. Pretty sure it's on Prime. But anyway, if there's anybody who has the courage to live by their convictions and live their life the way they want to, it is Jack Reacher. He has a moral code. He's very true to himself. When you watch it, like somebody will tell him to do things, and he'll just go, no, because it doesn't align with his values at the time, or he doesn't appreciate in the manner in which he was approached. And Amy pointed out that he likes to help people. He does. He does what he believes to always be the right thing. Often it's sticking up for the underdog. Now, I don't think he goes looking for it. It just happens. And that's how, we get these stories. But the other thing is that man owns a toothbrush. So if you're going by the typical versions of success, he has a toothbrush and a bus pass. That's it. He has no luggage. He doesn't have a change of clothes. He shops at the Goodwill because his value system is basically just having the freedom, not being tied to anything, and he's able to live his life in that manner. He's particular about the relationships that he keeps. You know, he very much his life is very successful to his standards. Now, most people don't consider that a successful life, but if you look at how he chooses to live, it's very successful to him.
He chooses to be transient. He finds himself in situations where he's helping people. And once again, he is living his life by his terms. He's defining his own success, not by what society says, not by what his friends say, not by what his family thinks success should look like, but what he deems as is important to him and what brings him happiness.
Mhm. Yeah. And he did have a successful military career, and I can say successful because if you watch the movies or read the books or whatever, they'll list all the things that he did well. And so that was a season of his life that he lived very successfully because he still lived up to his standards. He chose to join the military. He chose to stay in the military,
Hmm.
all of that. And even in his military career, if you watch the second season of Reacher, he basically went against orders because he did what he knew was to be right. So even at that, he was still successful living up to what his core values were and what was important to him. So, like you said, success is evolving. This was one section of his life, and now he's got this other section of his life.
And I think at this stage of our life, success has a lot to do with realization. Realizing that we're going to use some of our wisdom and some of our life lessons. And we've gotten to that point where we realize that what was important then isn't necessarily important now. And as Cheyenne mentioned, the journey of life that we're going through, that everything is constantly evolving. And we're realizing now that what brings us happiness, what brings us purpose, is what's going to define what success means.
We hope that this episode has encouraged you to find the courage to sit down and ask yourself some of those hard questions and be honest with yourself. And then just kind of check the areas where you're feeling like, yeah, I'm doing really well here. And then examine and come up with a plan to work on the areas where maybe you're not feeling quite as successful and have the courage to walk it out. Have the courage to walk out what is true to your goals and your values and who you are as a person. It can align with society. It doesn't have to align with society, but have the courage to walk it out. And just remember, you got this.
Just a quick reminder, everything we share on this podcast is for inspirational, personal growth, and real-life conversation. We're not doctors, therapists, financial advisors, or legal experts. Just two women sharing experiences, lessons, and stories to help you level up your life. Always do what's best for you and seek out qualified professionals when you need specific guidance. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't, and remember, you got this.